Okay, so I figure I'd do a follow-up video just to kind of summarize everything now that we've gotten all 100 tied, 100 patterns tied, that is. So my goal for this project really was to break it down into this overarching goal, as I wanted to catch fish on a fly I made, on a rod I made, materials I harvested, as much of the process as you can. And I can say I've done that now. I went out and built a rod, I tied the flies, harvested the feathers, harvested the materials, and caught pike with flies I tied, as well as bass and panfish. So, mission accomplished there. The other thing I wanted to do was to improve my skill, but not necessarily in the Instagram shadow box, super artsy flies, but more of in the practical, functional flies, and learn how to make them more durable, tie them faster, what matters, what doesn't matter in terms of catching fish, that kind of thing. I really have no interest in tying shadow box grade flies, as you can see in all the videos that we've done here. Also, since I'm still learning to fly fish, I'm going to lose a ton of these, so I don't want to invest 30 minutes in each fly if I don't have to, especially when, we're kind of following the 80-20 rule here, where I really don't need to spend all that extra time on something that probably won't catch me any more fish. And it hurts less when you lose them, right? So the other thing I needed to do was really fill out my fly boxes. It's been a while since I've been fly fishing. I don't know if you look at flies lately; they're $2 to $8 a piece for small ones, and game changers get ludicrously expensive. I mean, I could have bought 500 flies and just pulled the trigger and had them show up, but I spent about $120 on tools, equipment, and I've definitely learned something along the way, right? And I now have the videos that I can go back and look at how I tied flies, especially ones that have performed well and things that I need to make changes to. And you can see that in the videos. There's a couple of other ones that have I've tied a couple times. The sparkle, especially adding that to patterns, seems to be a huge improvement. And while it doesn't necessarily look as good having all the flash and sparkle in there, from a shadow box perspective, it definitely catches more fish. And so that's something that I've definitely evolved within, even in these patterns here, right? And I've only fished these, 10 times since I started this project. So that's kind of the project. And also, I mean, I was able to tie 500 flies. I've got a ton of material left over. I could do, another 1,000 flies with some of this material, and it would cost me just my time. And being that this equipment is relatively portable, I'm able to take this with me when I go fishing. It all fits in a slightly oversized tackle box, and you can tie. If something's working really well and you're losing them all, bam, tie them up. So I'm going to kind of go over the equipment that I used, and then some more lessons learned, what I do differently if I was starting over again, and that kind of thing. And I kind of roll through it in a kind of rambling outline, but I'm going to break it up into a couple big sections, and we'll go from there. So obviously, the first thing you're gonna need is a vise of some kind. This is just an old vise that I've had from when I was a kid, and I tied like 20 terrible flies, and basically never used it again. This works great. And originally, I was just going to tie up a bunch of the foam spiders, which are my go-to. And honestly, after I started this, if I didn't have this and I was just tying the foam spiders, I'll put a link to it in the description, but I can't remember who it is. But he just uses, for basic learning, he uses an Exacto knife because it's got the same mechanism, and he just sticks it in a 2x4. Undo this. Oh. Basically, he just puts the hook in there just like you do in here, and he sticks it in a 2x4 for basic tying. If you're just trying to see if this is for you, or you need to tie up some flies, or you need a super lightweight, minimal, no frills, portable kit, that's not a bad option. Especially if you don't, I mean, yeah, obviously the $120, $200 vices are going to be nicer for that. But like, I tied all these without rotary. It would have been nice to have rotary. And what I mean by that is, once you've got this clamp down, the whole thing spins so you can wrap stuff easier. That's nice to have. You don't need it if you're a beginner. Honestly, this This is still probably plenty for me, even if you tie fancier patterns. Again, it all kind of comes down to, are you just trying to see if this is for you? Do you just want to save some money on some basic flies? I mean, I go through a ton of the foam spiders. Honestly, a 2x4 and a Exacto knife would have been plenty. Heck, even chucking it in a drill chuck would have been fine for, tying up the 40 I needed. And like I said, it all depends on what you want to do. I was able to buy all the materials for those foam spiders for like $4. And those are like $2.50 each at my local fly shop. So obviously your time's worth something, but nice glass of bourbon and a quiet evening, not a bad use of your time. Let me get back to the vise here though. If you're looking for one, you can find these on eBay, usual places. They range anywhere from $20 on the sketchy Chinese websites up to $40 for a nicer used one. They're okay. They're functional. This clamp down here leaves a lot to be desired. Usually I have to end up clamping it to a piece of 1x4 and then clamp that down with the C-clamp because it's actually not wide enough to fit over most of my counters or folding tables or anything like that. So keep that in mind if you're looking at this style. The other thing that I would say if you're just getting started is watch a bunch of videos and kind of figure out what you plan on tying and plan out what you're going to do first. That will help you on your decision on this guy. Okay, the next tool is the whip finish tool. You don't need one of these. You can do it by hand. It's not that bad. The first, I don't know, you can see it in the videos till I finally get one of these. This is the Loon one. It's pretty nice. I don't use this part all that much. This is, you can cut the thread with this screwdriver style end. I don't know. I've looked at making these before since they're just bent up. There's plans online you can find. These things are like $15. If you want one, get one. Otherwise, learn how to do the finger thing. It's up to you. This is a nice to have. And if you're sitting down to do 100, I would say probably splurge. If you're on an extreme budget, then learn to use the hand thing. And you still have to use the hands for super big flies anyways. So it's not a bad skill to learn in that regard. All right, bobbins. I've only got one of these. This is just a super basic one that came with a kit years ago. It's pretty terrible, to be honest with you. However, once you get this adjusted, you just kind of keep bending these till it feeds right. They're not bad. I see these on like the usual Chinese suspect websites, Wish, Alibaba, AliExpress type deals. If you're going the budget route, they're not terrible, but you can pick these up online for a couple of bucks. I would say probably get a couple of these if you plan on doing 100 flies because, or 100 patterns, I should say. I found that changing this was a pain. And for a handful of flies, you can see that I don't bother changing it, even though it's not quite the right thread, just because it doesn't get me anything if you can't see the thread wraps or something like that. But yeah, definitely get one of these. You can get it spooled up then and get it one dialed in for your lower denier, higher denier stuff. Kind of in the same vein of that, in the earlier videos, you can see I picked up various threads. I've got various types here. I've got some of these little bobbins as well. So this is actual fly tying thread. This is for rod wrapping thread. This is the color I used on my fly rod to do the guides. These are out of a dollar store kit of like 20 different, miniature bobbins and then a couple of big bobbins. This was actually super handy for starting out. This was a buck. I got like, there's like 20 colors in here. And this is fairly thick thread. So if you're doing foam stuff, it's nice. But also if you're looking for a portable kit or you're just starting out, these fit on here perfectly. They're relatively forgiving in terms of tension if you're not set up quite right. I wouldn't go tie size 14s with this. You can, but it's really hard because a couple wraps and it's too much bulk. But it means you're a lot less likely to break thread when you're first starting out. And this is wildly cheaper than the fly tying thread. That being said, this is definitely smoother, better for the application, but I tied a ton of flies with these, just getting my tensions figured out, getting my process figured out, and it's forgiving. It doesn't snap if you look at it wrong. If you don't have a super nice bobbin, that's super nice to have. Um, Kind of in that same vein, I don't have a threading tool. You can make a fid really easily out of just a bent piece of super fine wire. So you just stick it in there, put it in. Commercial needle threading ones, if you find the long ones at Joann, those will fit in here and you can thread it easy. I've just been putting the tail end in that's freshly cut, and then you just suck on that end and it pulls it right through. This stuff is harder than this stuff to pull through, but that's probably just due to the nature of it. But you're definitely going to want a couple colors. If you're just starting out, stick to the primary colors that you plan on using. So plan out your patterns, and then pick, white, black, olive, that kind of thing. I ended up using a ton of black, basically almost an entire spool of black in this here of the 140. I didn't end up using as much of the 70. You can see I still got a fair bit left on that spool. It and it kind of depends on the kind of flies you plan on tying. If you're tying all super small trout flies, then yeah, you're probably going to be doing a lot more of the small stuff. If you're doing big stuff, then you're probably, for pike and stuff like that, you probably want thicker thread, and that kind of thing. It all depends on what you're planning on doing. If you're doing what I did, where I'm tying super tiny, not super tiny, but relatively small flies for trout and for pike and bass and all that, then you're going to need an assortment of thicknesses, colors, all that good stuff. The other thing that kind of fits in this category here is lead wire. This stuff's nice to have. This is the real thin stuff. It's nice. I've also used regular solder, like you would for a soldering iron, if you guys are familiar with that. I have that in a bunch of colors here. It's not pure, so I suspect it will corrode a little bit faster, but honestly, I have a ton of solder. It's super cheap, and I have it in various sizes. So I did use that for some of the bigger flies when I needed bigger solder or bigger wire. It kind of a 6 and 1/2 does the other thing. You don't get a ton on the spool. I mean, there's, you can already see the bottom there. It's not much. Meanwhile, I've got 1 pound spools of solder here that are relatively affordable. So just something to consider. Something you may already have, or, can get it from work, that kind of thing. So that's the thread. Okay, so the next one you're going to need, obviously, scissors. I used a nice pair of these for a long time when I first started, before I kind of really got in the swing of things. A good pair of these are fine. They're not as delicate. They're not as easy to use. Honestly, for my hands, I had these Fiskars. These worked great. They're easy. They're affordable. You can find them at Walmart. If you turn out you're not into fly tying, you don't have a super specialty pair of scissors that you can't use, do not try and use the little goofy first aid kit scissors. They may look like the scissors you see in the videos, but they do not hold an edge. You get like 10 flies in and they just fall apart. I would say if you're just starting out and you want to see if you like it and you're doing the super basic method, that kind of thing, you already got these in your drawer. They're a little bit clunky. They're a little bit cumbersome. It's not that big of a deal. You're just not as fast. These are totally fine. Just a good sharp pair. These are a fair bit better because they're spring loaded. But honestly, if you're kind of doing what I'm doing, these are a happy medium where at the end of the day, you still got a good pair of scissors that you can use elsewhere, and you don't have a specialty pair. Yeah, the super nice titanium coated ones, titanium nitride coated with all the cool patterns and all that, the Dr. Slicks, whatever, I'm sure those are great. This is just fine if you're just starting out. And you may even already have these, so it's something to consider. Move these out of the way. Some other specialty tools you're gonna probably want to have: toothbrush, some little clips. I got these from my wife. Binder clips, that kind of thing. I've used a couple times. This is just a piece of a pen grip, off of a clicky pen or something like that. One of those deals. These are super nice for pushing hair back over heads, for doing reverse. You got to push all the hair back. You put it over the eye, and you can see that in a couple of videos. Take these off a pen, easy peasy. These are great little clamps. They do make hackle pliers and that kind of thing as well. I would, if you get a kit or you see some cheap hackle pliers, definitely grab those. If you're into electronics, you'll be very familiar with some of those as well. Those are just the test probe leads, the little grabber mini ones like you see on oscilloscope probes or that kind of thing. The other one you're going to want is a toothbrush. This is for lighter brushing out than the Velcro. So you'll see people use Velcro to brush out flies. This is kind of like a happy intermediary, and you probably already have one of these. This is one I just use for in my shop here for dust and kind of detail and stuff. So I used it for this. Worked great. Obviously not as grippy, but cheap. You've already got this stuff. Yeah, they sell one of these. Yeah, and you can get, but like you can get a pack of these for, and you get 25 of these at the dollar store for $1. So if you're just starting out, these are nice to have. They're not required. Depends on the kind of flies you're gonna tie. Your mileage may vary a little bit on some of that stuff. All kind of like everything, it kind of depends what you want to do. Let's see the other ones here. Get yourself some Sharpies. You get the assorted color pack type deal. This is so handy to not have to change thread when you're wrapping stuff. If you're running white thread or a lighter colored thread and you need a red band, or you want to put a black band in something, this is great. You see it, you just pull it out, you rub it with a Sharpie, keep wrapping. Don't have to change colors on your bobbin. Don't have to, start a new wrap. Brilliant. Adding eyes, putting dots on stuff. Get like the 4-pack of colors. Get a red one and a black one if you just want to do the bare minimum. That kind of thing. The other one I would recommend, if you can find them cheap or you can get them from work, whatever, are the paint markers. These are great for doing eyes on stuff. I got a couple colors here, but they're just the regular, shaky ones. These are nice, especially if you're doing like clouds or minnows or something with the weighted eyes and you want to put a little dot. Or if you're doing like foam stuff and you want to put dots on them. Again, nice, not required. I would definitely get, you should already have a black Sharpie in your junk drawer, but a red one is nice. The yellow one is kind of nice, but it doesn't show up as well. This is kind of like if you're doing a finer stuff, but if you're just starting out, just get the 2 colors and you'd probably be fine. Silver is also good to have. It doesn't show up that well, but you can tell it's not white. But again, are fish really looking at your intermediate color wraps? For the kind of fishing I'm doing, probably not. But it's nice to dress them up a little bit, especially if you're putting like bands on fur and stuff like that. It's nice to have some more colors, but like perch patterns, especially, that kind of thing. So just something to consider there. Kind of, again, you got to plan out what flies you're using. Okay, and the last of the tools I really want to touch on are just some nice to haves, or you probably already have them type deals. And these, again, really depend on the fly patterns you're going to do. So a lighter for singeing stuff, for melting stuff to make it kind of ball up a little bit, that kind of thing. Monofilament. You probably already have one of these. Only a handful of my patterns called for one, and for a bunch of mine, I didn't even bother using them. But you should already have one of these, so if you come across one you need, you probably have it. I printed a hair stacker. I found this on Thingiverse. It's just 2 tubes. It does stack hair. It does take some effort because it's printed. It's not perfectly smooth. I didn't end up using this a whole bunch. I don't know what it really gets you for the kind of flies I'm tying. If you're tying delicate flies, go watch Savage Flies videos. He uses his a ton. He's got a nice one. But for what I was doing, it really didn't make a big difference. The other thing that I would say is if you've got one of these little screwdriver deals, I'm talking like these, like the freebie deals you get at like trade shows and stuff. Of course, this one's all glued together now. These all come out, and you can flip these around and all that. I use this one as a bodkin for poking stuff and applying glue and all that kind of thing. Honestly, this is great. These are free. A bent paper clip works just fine. Tip of an old pencil. It's effectively a piece of wire with a handle. So If you find yourself doing a bunch of glue or paint applications, these are great for putting eyes on. You take the paint marker and you dunk it, and then you dip this thing in it, and you touch the eye or whatever you're doing. These are nice to have. Again, kind of a luxury thing. If you're just starting out, you probably don't need them. Just something to consider. As a way to a little bit more advanced of a setup. But if you're just starting out, you don't need these unless you get a very specific kind of fly you're tying. And then if you're doing that, the big printed one's probably not for you. You probably need the brass one that's nice and slick, just to not be frustrating with it. Otherwise, you'd be tapping away on it for a while. The other big thing I want to talk about is storage. So figure out how you want to store all this stuff, because it rapidly becomes a bunch of little stuff. And if you're borrowing stuff from the house, it's no big deal, right? You put it back in the drawer when you're done, no biggie. If you find out it's for you, then you gotta, and you're gonna keep the stuff as fly tying stuff. Then you need a box to put it in, a drawer, a space in your house, whatever. I don't want to dedicate, this is my workbench for all things, electronics, whatever. So I don't want to consume this full time with fly tying. This has been kind of a fly bench for a while right now, but I need to get this back into its regular general use case. So I keep all my stuff in a oversized tackle box, and then I keep all of my flies in these, the bigger ones, in these dollar store boxes. You can get these at Menards, wherever. They're $1.25, depending on your place. I've also used some of these smaller ones. This one's got electronics in it, but because they're all out in the garage now. But these kind of boxes are great too for keeping your materials in. And then I keep all of that in a big old school Plano, suitcase tackle box. And it keeps it all nice and neat and organized, keeps critters out of it. If you have a dog, by the way, you have to keep these bucktails put away. Your dog will be all over these things. Putting them up on your workbench is not enough. You have to put them away, because they will get into your stuff, and you have to be careful that they don't get into hooks. So consider that. Your dog, cat, whatever, critters, pests, whatever, they're going to be wanting into this stuff. So just think about that when you're planning on where you're going to store it all. Because counting out 100 hooks to make sure your dog hasn't eaten one really is a bad time. The other piece of kit I would say that you probably want is some kind of little trash can. This is just a 3D printed one. Nothing fancy here. It's just a vase I printed up. You're gonna want a little trash can on your desk, as well as a big trash can. The little trash can that's within reach is such a game changer in keeping the bench clean. And this is, you see how dirty this, I kind of brush everything aside. This gets super dirty super fast when you're cutting hair. This is a shared space. Your kitchen counter or something. Make sure you've got a shop vac if you're going to tie more than a couple of these, because it'll be hair everywhere. That's just the nature of tying these things and trimming stuff. So that kind of covers it for all the tools you'll need. There will be some specialty tools that'll come up that you'll want, pliers and that kind of thing. But honestly, a lot of your fishing gear works well here too, right? So like if you don't have hackle pliers and you want to use forceps, works great. Are they as delicate? No. But again, it depends what kind of flies you're tying. I'm not tying really anything smaller than a 14. Works fine. Squishing barbs down, yeah, I could use a pair of pliers, or I could use my regular forceps. Kind of that flexibility is nice. I keep all the stuff right here anyways, so I've got all my fishing gear right here, so it's not a huge deal to kind of multitask with that kind of stuff. And that's kind of a thing that I think if you're just starting out, you should try and do, is try and not have as many single-use tools or materials as you can, because it turns out like a lot of the stuff, if it's a single use, it's a lifetime supply. And that's, if you're just starting out, you kind of want to really focus on learning the skills or finding out if this is even for you, and then make your decision from there. All right, now I'll go on materials. Okay, so for materials, I kind of started, I followed Savage Fly's thing about getting materials at the dollar store, kind of a trend here. Wanted to see if I wanted to like it. So I picked up a bunch of these little yarn deals. They also had a bunch of chenille. They've got pipe cleaners. Don't bother with the pipe cleaners. I thought these would be awesome because they stay put and they've got a little bit of weight. They just rust. For some bluegill flies, they're probably okay. But for pretty much everything else, they don't really add enough weight. And once you get them all bent up, they don't look as good as I thought they would. I thought they'd be kind of a slick thing. They're okay. For drying racks, they work great, honestly. Sticking these in a bend kind of shapes to dry flies, they work fine for that, but not really worth your time. The other thing I would get is they have the cleaning mitts, like the for doing your car or whatever, the chamois. This pulls out of that. So if you want to do mop flies or you just need some bright yarn or chenille, I should say. Again, it was $1 at the dollar store. So, you know, that's a lifetime supply. The other thing I did is I picked up a big bag of feathers from there. These are like the party feathers. These are okay. These only really work for big flies, and they're kind of all broken up. They were $1. They're great if I just needed to pop a color, but you can see when I tie them, they really kind of don't work as well as you'd think they would. And I would, they're nice to have, but they're a poor example, I should say. So if you maybe the Target brand's a little better, I don't know. These were $1. I mean, I've tied a ton of flies and I still have most of the bag. You can kind of go from there. The other thing I would say is the chenille at the dollar store, Target, or the craft store. This stuff is great. This comes in all kinds of sizes, from jumbo to whatever. And then you can actually dye this stuff, as I did in one of the videos. This is just with coffee, and it stays, that color. You can dye it darker, brighter, whatever. That's a great trick. It also, again, you can run the Sharpies on it and get a cool two-toned effect because it won't get down into it, right? It'll only do the tips. So that's something to consider. I picked this up in black and white, and I mean, I've used, 6 feet of this for all the flies I tied. So borrow this from your wife's craft room, or consider, just getting this and chucking it in your box and just knowing you've got, excess of it. Kind of to that end, though, do make, like with everything, try and plan out your initial flies if you're just learning. Because I probably could have just bought white and Sharpied on the black for the handful I needed, or dyed it. I also had a bunch of the yarn in various colors. I could have probably just made do with that, and gone from there. The scrubbing yarn that they have as well. This stuff is pretty cool. It's not as long of a sparkle as the cactus chenille. I think this was like $4. Yeah, $4, $3.99. For smaller flies, this stuff's awesome. The bass and walleye flies turn up awesome in this stuff. Would recommend. If they sell it in a smaller, if they sold it in this size, it'd be great. But this stuff is super durable. They make it for like making scrubbies and stuff. Fantastic. Definitely get yourself a roll of this if you're tying walleye flies or fuzzy little bugs for panfish, that kind of stuff. Pick your favorite colors, kind of go from there. Yeah, would recommend getting a roll of this if that's the kind of flies you're looking at tying. The cactus chenille that they sell commercially for fly tying has a little bit longer of a flash element to it, and it's a little bit denser. They do make this in a double-sided. My store didn't have it when I picked it up, although I was able to pick that up because you can always trim the shorter easier by working around your fly. But that stuff worked great. Let's see here. Foam. I got a bunch of foam here. Comes in all kinds of colors. If I was doing it again, though, get this stuff. This is the multicolored stuff. This comes in a wide and a narrow pattern. This is the narrow. Get the wide because you can cut out colors you need out of it, and you don't need 12 sheets. I've got a bunch of sheets here. These are $1.20 each, or $1.25 each, I think. The only color this doesn't have is tan then. So, or brown for your terrestrials. This worked great though, and you don't end up needing a bunch of sheets. I mean, they store super easy. They're cheap. If you want to get a bunch of sheets, you can. But this is truly, I got 6 sheets here. It'd be a lifetime supply of all the various colors I picked up until I picked up the rainbow stuff. So consider that. I tie a lot of foam flies. I do a lot of topwater stuff, so I'm going through it. But I must have tied 50 of the foam spiders, and it's made barely a dent in it. The other one, if you're tying the boobies, get the round foam. There's only a handful of flies that really take this stuff, so it's kind of a your mileage may vary type deal if you want it. I ordered this stuff off the internet because I just kind of wanted to play with it, and I didn't want to spend, buy a ton of it. I want to say this is like $1 or something, $2. Just something to consider if you don't want to buy a ton of material. Because honestly, I mean, I'm going to tie 10 flies, 15 flies of the boobies, and I'll use it up eventually, but it's going to take me a long time to use it up. And then, if you need this in other colors too, it builds up. Whereas the multicolored stuff, you can roll it into this. It doesn't work as well, but if you've got patience, you can roll the sheets into this kind of thing. Doesn't look as nice, but if the fish are that close, if you're bass fishing, they're already on it. So something to consider. Okay, so I touched on it a little bit earlier. Materials that you're going to use just a couple of times, something to consider. Peacock herl. Get the better stuff. I did not get the right kind of peacock herl. It's okay. It's just like, eh. The Crystal Flash Silver, I ended up not using a bunch of. I ended up using the, I don't know what you call this one here. This is like the multicolored stuff. I've found I like this a lot better for the water I generally fish. Only a couple times did I actually use this stuff. It's pretty cheap, so I mean, if you want to get both colors, by all means, that's your prerogative. But just something to consider is that what kind of flies you tie. The pike flies performed way better with this stuff on them than this stuff. And it's probably just a feedback loop at this point because I'm tying more with this stuff. Either one of these is a lifetime supply for me. I'll lose more of this pulling it out than I will ever use probably. My vacuum cleaner is sparkly from vacuuming up all this stuff. So, not saying you got to plan it out, but this stuff is what I ended up using more of. In the same vein of that, of getting the right stuff, I got these hackles here, the grizzly hackle. These are not the right kind. You want the long, skinny ones, not the shorter ones like this. There's a couple longer ones in here, but this, for tying the smaller flies, this is really not what you want. They're just wide feathers. Kind of just consider that when you're ordering. Make sure you get the right ones, because while these are useful, this whole package will be a lifetime supply for me, and it's not quite the right stuff. So consider that. The other thing I want to touch on a little bit here is rubber legs, as I'm kind of just rambling here. Get yourself some segmented colored ones, some of the the peel and the strip of ones, and then I ended up picking up a couple of these. I've got 3 or 4 colors of this stuff, just to the type of spiders I've been tying. If you're also into the wacky worms, get yourself a bag of that stuff. Stress balls from the dollar store also have this on it. I don't know if it's the same material, but it feels almost identical. I had already ordered this stuff from AliExpress. If I hadn't, I would have just gone the stress ball route, because the stress ball is multicolored, so I wouldn't need, again, a lifetime supply of these. Something to consider when you're meandering through the dollar store, to look at it like that. I'll switch now a little bit to hooks. So I picked up a bunch of different kinds of hooks, right? So I picked up just some generic, number 12s, more streamer hooks. I picked up, the various assortment of hooks, and then I also picked up, and I would recommend it for starting, pick up an assortment of hooks. Maybe if you're doing smaller flies, don't pick up the catfish assortment, but pick up a bunch of hooks. These are all, relatively cheap in the scheme of things. And when you finally find one you like I tied a shitload of these number 6s. And I mean, I've used all 100 out of here, and this is my second 100 count pack. So definitely consider those. Get an assortment of stainless, the 1X, 2X, 3X, 4X, 6X long type deal. If you know you're tying a bunch of long patterns like that, try and split the difference a little bit, um, or just get them all. It all kind of depends. But like the generic like Walmart hook assortments, uh, honestly aren't that bad, especially because the first handful of flies you tie are going to be pretty terrible. Um, that's just kind of the nature of how it works. But for just starting out, I would say probably don't start with anything much smaller than a 12. Um, Anything smaller than a size 12 hook gets kind of hard to work with in a hurry. So just something to consider. Um, the other thing you want to do is when you're tying, consider um, your eyes and your beads and your cones to the size of stuff you're going to tie. So, for example, I picked up a bunch of these really small little beads. Pretty much nothing I'm going to tie here will even fit through these beads. These eyes are about perfect, though, for what I do. Same with the cone weights here, right? These are kind of on the small side for the bigger stuff, and they're a little bit bigger for some of the smaller stuff. These have been great. I think I had like 50 of these to start with. Um, get these in either gold or silver, or brass or silver, we're going to call it. Paint markers make great work of covering these up, and you can touch them up if you need to, add eyes, that kind of thing. I got some smaller ones of these as well. I probably could have gotten away with just getting the bigger size or the one size bigger than that. Again, plan a little better than I did. And I mean, I'll still use them up eventually. It'll just take a while. It'll take a couple seasons for me to get through it because I don't go fishing every weekend. I get a job and a life, so I can't get out there every weekend. So I'm not going through these. If you were a professional fisherman, yeah, you'd be blasting through all this stuff. But again, if you're learning, all with a grain of salt, right? All right, let's talk adhesives, glues, that kind of thing next. So obviously you're going to want some kind of adhesive glue once you've got your final thread wrap on there to lock everything down and not have it come apart. Some flies, not a huge deal. Other flies, um, you know, definitely that's like half what's holding them together. Especially if you're going after bass or something like that, they're going to really tear them up. Definitely consider some adhesive. I use the Sally Hansen Hard as Nails. This is like $2 at Walmart. You see a bunch of the big fly tyers on YouTube use this stuff. It does lock in the heads really nice and your thread wraps and all that stuff. Would recommend it. Also, if you've got some super glue around, I would recommend that. For some of the slicker stuff, it's nice to be able to stick it down, foam especially. I tried using the Gorilla Glue to build stuff up, build up some heads. It works okay, but it's not nearly as convenient as the UV set resin. I have not tried it, but I would suggest giving it a shot if you plan on doing a bunch of built up heads. You absolutely should get a bottle of the Sally Hansen's. If you're just starting out, this is the cheapest, easiest. This does work, but it doesn't wick in as well. It's messier. If you've got it, you can use it, but this is so cheap, I would say definitely pick this up, or you might already even have some of this stuff. Super convenient, and the smell isn't nearly as bad as the super glue. There are other glues I looked at using as well. I know some people like to use a little bit of hot melt sometimes on the super big flies to help hold stuff down. I've only seen a couple people do that. I probably wouldn't bother. That's probably not for what we're doing here. The other ones are get some wax while you're there for waxing your thread. I don't know where mine went, but in the adhesives category, that's something you probably want to have available for getting your thread to stick, especially when it's really slick and slick materials and that kind of thing. All right. We kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Furs. This is some craft fur, bucktail, that kind of thing. The craft fur at the dollar store or at Michael's is great. Honestly, the rainbow stuff is super handy. The rainbow stuff and the white was great to get. If you've got bucktail, you might not need the white, but this stuff's like, I think it's like $1.50 or $2 a thing. You got all the colors you can pick from. You got a big sample here. You can see I've been picking at this a bunch, and I still haven't, there's only a couple spots that look a little bit thin. This is, if you're just starting out, this is fantastic. Would recommend getting that. As far as bucktail goes, white and some kind of chartreuse green, yellow, something like that would be recommended. Pick your size and kind of pick your flies again to know what you're going to need to do. This one's a medium size, and my white is a large. So just kind of by nature, I don't have as long of fibers on or hairs on this. Not a huge deal, but for some of the clousers, it would be nice to have a slightly longer hairs available. And you can kind of pick where you're working on it to pick the hair type and all that. But it just gives you a little bit more flexibility. You can always cut it shorter. It's hard to cut it longer, They come in bags like this. Make sure you keep them in the bag and you keep them away from your pets. Dogs love these things because it's basically deer jerky, deer hide. My dog cannot stay away from these things and has torn into boxes to try and find it. So be careful with that. All right, so now I'm going back to the talking hands here. So the kind of philosophy, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, is the 80-20 rule. So, and this applies to a lot of things in life, and it applies to fly tying as well. And it really depends on your goals. If you're looking to make Instagram flies, I don't even know why you're watching this channel. This is not for you. This series is not for you. If you're looking for fishable flies, then yes. Then this is probably something for you. If you're looking to kind of do more of the fishing, harvest the feathers, build the rod, catch the fish, the whole shebang like that, then yeah, then this is probably kind of more what you're looking for. But this is kind of the, 80% of the results come from the first 20% type deal. So my goal was to make fishable flies, like I said. And, I got these are my feathers that I harvested from, these would be bluebills, I believe. And I think I got some mallard up in here too, but some flank. My goal was to, get my own bird, tie my own fly like that. So I'm not trying to tie super fancy flies, but I want to have flexibility if I wanted to. And so my goal here was to learn a bunch, which I have done. But also I wanted to be able to tailor the flies to the type of fishing I do. So my fishing is primarily lake fishing for bass, pike, panfish, occasional walleye if I get lucky, and a little bit of trout fishing. And so my patterns are generally less delicate. They're designed to be less delicate of a presentation, right? I'm not trying to finesse trout out. Generally, I'm throwing big honking flies on an 8-weight, going after pike and bass kind of deal. And some of the techniques I have refined, right? And this kind of is you kind of pick your own path as you go through this. But you're kind of focusing on one little wedge of the pie generally for your particular fishing thing. And if you find out that you like this, then yeah, then you definitely grow it and you upgrade your equipment, upgrade your techniques, practice. If you want to get good, go tie the same pattern 25, 30 times and then make a slight variation and tie it again. And you'll see that like from the first one, when you see them on your drying rack, which I guess I haven't talked about really. My drying rack's just a piece of wire I've got stretched across the back of the thing here. It's some pipe cleaners. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You see them across that though, you'll see progression from the first one that looks okay and all the way down to your last one. You're like, that's actually pretty good. Like I'd buy that at a store. And that's, again, it's what you want to make of it. The other thing that this has kind of taught me, and this kind of all dovetails together, is the skills used here for wrapping and all that directly translate to rod building. And so let me kind of elaborate on that a little bit. That's like if you're wrapping on a rotary, then you already know how to wrap guides on a rod. So it's like same concepts, right? you're not using a whip finishing tool. You're using a loop because you can't get it over the end of a rod. But same concepts, right? You want to add a hook keeper to your rod? Boom, take your bobbin, go do it. It's super easy. I use the bobbin here that I use for fly tying to do my rod. It worked great. You want to repair one out while you're out traveling. You break an eye off or something, you can put it back on. Maybe your favorite spinner has lost its bucktail. Perfect. You can put it right back on. Jigs, put new flash on them. Put some, whatever. Perhaps you're into model airplanes and you need to lash your push rods or something. It's super applicable to a lot of stuff that I didn't think it would be, and those skills do build as a cohesive, broad thing to do. The other thing I would say is if you're just learning, try shooting video. I can't remember who it is. I'll link it in here. Is a small YouTube channel to fly tying and fishing, but he talks about why to shoot video, and I'll kind of touch on it a little bit here, and I've kind of touched on it earlier, but it helps you see your progress from your early patterns till now. And don't make the videos for other people necessarily. Make them for yourself, so you know what you used, so you can see your mistakes, and that kind of thing. I usually do the video of the first one or two that I've tied, because that's the one that learns me the most. When I go back and look at it, if I shot you a pro Savage Flies grade 1 or a Tightline, or Hook for Life, or any of those guys, it would be, for me, going back and viewing the video, I wouldn't see the common pitfalls that I am going to make. Only how to tie it perfectly. And there's plenty of other videos for that. So make them for yourself. If other people use them as reference to see how they're going to make the same mistake, that's a great benefit. But primarily make them for yourself. Because you can go back and review, see what materials you did. I lost one the other day, the last one of 5 that I'd tied. It was great. I went back, looked at it, and said, okay, this is the material list, but I'd also like to change up how I'm doing a little bit. I want to add more flash to it, yada, yada, yada. I need to put more super glue under it. That's considered, that was a great functionality that I had that I probably wouldn't have had if I just had the book, and was looking through it. The other thing is you're going to learn how to edit video, even if it's poorly. I don't edit all my videos as public facing, but for family update videos and stuff like that, it's great to be able to do even just a hack job of an edit, and have it look passable. So that's a skill you're going to learn there, right? The other thing is, this is a great way to fill your fly box on the cheap. And you can kind of see through your course of your videos why you're, as your fishing style evolves. You can say, oh, I used to fish a bunch of these. This is my confidence flies. And it kind of provides a record that you can go back and look on. And that's just kind of the process there. I want to touch on again before I conclude this thing, with planning out what you want to do. If you just want to get into fly tying for the sake of getting into fly tying, that's fine. Pick some number of patterns, get the stuff, tie them up. If you're trying to figure out, you're just trying to fill your fly box and that kind of thing, again, pick out your patterns to your fishing style. Doing what I did with I want to catch all the freshwater fish is not the most efficient way to do it, but you do get exposed to a bunch of techniques. They're not the best techniques. You don't get refined on all of them, but you do get the techniques. Learning to try and wrap these kind of feathers, terrible. When I finally got some good grizzly hackle, no problem, right? If I can deal with these, I could deal with a good grizzly hackle, no problem. Same kind of thing with some of those smaller flies, right? Once I tied a bunch of number 12s, going down to 14s really wasn't that big of a deal. 16s was still hard, but I didn't tie a bunch of those because I don't really fish a bunch of those. But I can, and that's a skill that I have now, and I can bring with me. If I start doing more trout fishing and I'm fishing some zebra midges, I now know that I can tie flies that small, okay-ish, but I can. The other thing you can do is you can vary patterns. So if you want to tie 100 of the same fly, but you want to vary the colors, that is a great way to get dialed in on your favorite confidence fly in various colors. And if you plan this out, you can narrow down on your material list a lot, and just kind of focus on working on your technique if that's what you want to do. So what's next? So this is the 101 first video. See, I'm probably not going to drop any more fly tying videos, unless you might see something sporadic, but you probably won't. I was able to fish these flies, like I said, with feathers I harvested myself and all that. And so I've kind of accomplished my goal, and I've got several years worth of flies in the box now to fish. I probably will be replacing some of the more productive flies that I used for pike because they do get tore up real bad. Probably this winter. I don't have a timetable. Filming this actually takes a little bit of effort. It's not as much as you think, but it still takes some. And the tripod is here, so it's in the way all the time of what you're actually trying to look at and hitting the screen with the bobbin and all that. And you'll see that in a bunch of videos that I've done. So I probably won't film those. The next big thing I've got is I just went and harvested a bunch of birch bark, and I got a new rod blank in. I'm gonna try and see how that, if I can do a birch bark grip on the rod, see how that works out. It's gonna be kind of a beater rod. It's a 5-weight. I did order it from eBay, so I'm expecting the blank to just be trash. Actually, funny, it got lost in the mail for like 2 weeks, so they refunded me, and then it showed up, and I called them. I sent them an email. I was like, "Hey, this finally showed up." They're like, "Oh, don't worry about it." So I expect the blank to just be trash, but we're gonna find out. Again, this is about building some skill here, and if I get a nice blank out of it, it's mainly I want to practice the birch bark grip method, which I think will look awesome. And again, I harvest the birch bark where I go fishing, just to kind of complete that circle and it's kind of what I like to do, tie it back to the area kind of thing. Yeah, I just kind of want to play around with that. There may be some boat content, but probably not. This isn't really a channel for other people. This is really to document it for myself and to share with like friends and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where this is at. But in conclusion, I would strongly recommend, if you're into this, definitely take video. Definitely push yourself. It doesn't take much to do this. Pick your patterns, plan it out, and get after it. It's not that bad. Even terrible looking flies still catch fish. Even the first fly I tied here was a hot disaster. I debated not even put the video up. I still went out and caught panfish on that stupid thing until it came apart. So you definitely can. You can definitely go catch big sunnies with terrible patterns. So would recommend. If you got any questions, you can always drop me a comment. I've been rambling for a little long here, but yeah, good luck and tight lines.